I had a thought about something, but I lost my train of thought. But I had so it's about gratitude. So I had a friend of mine. He he's a therapist anyway, and he has this question because the I just want to share this because I find it so interesting. Um, it's not related to today's talk, but I just want to share it because we're talking about gratitude. Don't just spend time in gratitude just for today. Do it every single day. So just find something that you do uh, as a repetitive habit, right? Everything that's important to you, just do it every day. Like I always ask my kids, like, what are you grateful for today? When we sit in front of breakfast, when we sit in for dinner, like, well, what's one thing you found joy out of? So I always remind them to do that. I ask my wife that so that I can remind it what I'm grateful for today. So my friend, this therapist, I don't want to share his name because it's, you know, anyway, this he's a therapist and he follows this process from Viktor Frankl, the A Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if you guys ever read that book. It's a very interesting book because he's a therapist, a psychologist actually, and he was a Holocaust survivor. So he went through the Holocaust during the Nazi invasion and genocide. So he was thrown in this concentration camp, and he was like, I'm already here. Nothing else I can do. I don't know when I'm going to leave. So I'm going to do a test. I'm going to do an experiment. And he started observing people. And he found meaning out of the work that he did. And it gave him purpose. And he survived. He made it out of the camp. A lot of people died. And so his process of like finding happiness is through finding meaning. And so one of the questions, so why am I telling you this? Because so my friend, he was like, so I would ask people this, and I'm like, it's a very hard question. But sometime when you ask this question, it gives people more reasoning in their life, like find more meaning in their life. So he's like, why haven't you killed yourself yet? So it's a hard question. And I'm like, dang, that's a hard question. Like, what? You don't want to go around asking people that, right? That's not a question that you would ask anybody, anytime. But then he asked me that question because he's like, that question is very important because it helps you reflect on certain meanings in your life. Like for me, like, why haven't I? Because, I'm grateful for the life that I have. Um, my children is important to me and I want to be there for them. My wife is important to me. My family is important to me. Um, I'm grateful for my life, right? Just like when you think about that question, it's a very hard question. So when he asked me that, like, bro, like you can go around asking this to anybody, but I'm not telling you guys to answer that question or ask anybody this. So don't go around asking people this question. But that's a question that he asked me, and I was like, well, it got me thinking, right? It got me thinking. And so it helps you find meaning. So finding happiness, like everybody talks about happiness, this, happiness, that, like, oh, this makes me happy, this makes me feel good. But the truth is, like, sometimes you don't feel really happy. But when you do certain things, you feel meaningful. Like for me, when I refer to finding meaning, it's like what is meaningful for me is when I accomplish something, when I solve a problem, that's what makes me have meaning. So for you in your life, think about what are some of the things that doesn't make you happy, but you find some joy out of. Like this makes me have meaning. Like yesterday, I spent 2 hours with my kids putting these little puzzle together. Takes 2 hours. I did most of the work. I did 80% of the work. They were just playing around, and I was just trying to, I try to get them to be involved. But you know what? In that moment, it was meaningful because I wasn't doing anything on my phone. I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't distracted. So I'm like, hey, this is meaningful. I did my job. I set out a goal. I was like, I'm going to spend 2 hours helping them with this puzzle. It was a little toy, Lego toy that you put together and has a motor in it and make this thing move around. It has a remote control. You have to assemble it like little pieces, mechanical like puzzle. It's a mechanical puzzle. But that gave me meaning. So when I help people or when people overcome their challenges, it gives me meaning. So that brings me a lot of joy. And then from that, I get happiness. So for you, if you're just searching for like this broad happiness, you're not going to get it. So there's a lot of personal research and ask yourself, like, what makes me feel accomplished? And a lot of us falls into a place of like helping people making a change, helping your family, solving problems. Like if you're an artist, you painted a picture and everybody loved it, your friend loved it, people, love what you did. I mean, you find a lot of meaning out of that. If you like to, if you're generous and you like to help people, when you do that and they come to you and they're like, man, thank you for your help. That's very meaningful. Feels good. So now it shows you where you need to seek meaning, and that's where you find joy out of life. Versus like, hey, I just want to feel happy. Like, what does that mean, really? I just want to feel happy. Like, so how do you get there? Right? For me, overcoming challenges, doing hard challenges is meaningful. So that's not the point of this conversation today. Really, I just want to share that because I don't know, it just came across my mind as we were thinking about gratitude. And it's just a reminder for you guys that, every single day, things are going to be different. Not every single day is going to be happy, and not every single day is going to be great. There's going to be days that are good, and there's going to be days that are bad, but every single day you can find something that you found some meaning out of. Like, oh man, I woke up today and I was able to, impact my children's life. That's meaningful. Or I was able to impact my team. I was able to impact my coworker, my friends. I did something to help my friends out. That's good. I did something. I showed up for my business. I took an action for my business. Like, I feel accomplished because I showed up. And you should feel accomplished for showing up at 8 a.m. to this random conversation that we're having. Just kidding, it's not random, but I'm glad you guys are here. So, that's the reality of business. Like, and it's the same thing with life. Like, you never know what's going to happen. And sometimes because a lot of you come into this decision when you first join, you're like, man, what did I get myself into, right? Why am I even doing all of this? Am I wasting my time? Like, 3 months in, you're like, am I really wasting my time? Am I doing things right? Where am I? What's the point of going through all of this hardship? And some of you might be wondering that right now, because sometimes I'm wondering why I put myself through this at all. Because, it's so much easier to just sit in front of a computer and sell a product. It's harder to sit in front of people because sometimes people might not get it. You guys might not get it. The things I say might not make sense. I might get like, he didn't say that very well. That was terrible. Hopefully you guys don't give me those kind of feedback, but I receive feedback well. So, just give me feedback back. So share your feedback. Be honest. I can always improve. But you have these questions like, am I doing the right thing? And so you're wondering this, am I moving forward quickly, or am I moving in the right direction? Did I make the right choice? And it stirs around in your mind. It comes, I know you guys are working full-time jobs. You're tired sometimes. You're stressed. You have families. You have kids. Some of you have other responsibilities. You have boyfriend, girlfriend's responsibility, and that adds on to additional stress. But you decide to go on this business journey, starting an online business, and everything. And everything you do is not always good. Right? It's not always perfect, and unexpected things come up. So you're left with asking that question, did I make the right decision? So I guess I'll share a little bit with a story with you real quick. This happened to me in the past. So I was sitting in my office off 75 in George Bush here in Plano, Texas. We found this convenient office like right off the highway. And it was right across the street from Fry's Electronic. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Fry's Electronic. Some of you might not. Some of you in Texas probably do. It's like a gigantic office depot, kind of. Huge stores from the 90s. And we're talking about massive, like 100,000 square feet of stuff for computers and TVs and all kind of stuff. And I'm like, how are they competing now with Amazon? Like, it doesn't make sense to me with that so much retail space, right? Empty retail space, actually, because they're pretty much dying. I was sitting at my desk, this mahogany L-shaped desk. So my desk faces the door and my back is against the wall. The back of my wall is just all window. So as I'm sitting there every single morning, as the sun rises, it gets really hot. And so the heat's like pounding me in the back. I don't know why I chose that office space, but I just thought it was cool because I saw all windows and I'm like, hey, I get to see outside and I don't feel as distracted and claustrophobic. But on that day, I was sitting on my computer. I'm just doing research on how to grow my business, grow sales through, opening into other markets, expanding into Europe, Japan, going into South America, which is, I'm always doing research to grow the business through expansion. And a couple weeks before, I had just visited Vietnam, and this was around September 2016. And I received an email from my business partner telling me that we've just been sued. And I sat there reading this email. I was kind of like dumbfounded. We had just reached like pretty much the highest revenue numbers we ever had hit in a while, ever, really. We had one of the most profitable listing we ever had ever. And next thing you know, it got taken down. It was deactivated because someone filed a trademark infringement suit against us. Now, totally unexpected. I was not prepared for something like this. I was still inexperienced. I didn't know how to prepare. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know that you get sued. Right? Whoever whoever thought that you get sued, right? You're walking through life and next thing you know, you get a lawsuit, like you get a letter in the mail and be like, hey, you just got served. So what do you do? And I don't think you ever can be prepared for something like that. So just imagine that you're cruising and suddenly you hit a big old rock that busted your tires. That's kind of how I felt at the time. You're stuck on the side of the road wondering how did this happen? And after a few minutes of processing the news, I gained my composure and started refocusing on, just getting answers. So I'm a great Googler. That's how I solve a lot of my problems. I don't know if you guys, who here is a very good Googler? Like you just go straight to Google to ask a question. Yeah, Google is my friend and it has been my friend since the start of my business journey. So if you guys have a problem, go to Google first. And right now they have an AI feature. It's really awesome. I mean, you just type a question and the answer comes and you're like, oh, this is great. So I use Google a lot to solve a lot of my problems or to find out how to solve my problems. So I started researching. I spent my entire day just researching on what this claim was about and how this happened. After several hours of researching, I found out, reading the documents, the papers, and Googling online, is this even possible? I was so the trademark Crystal View was on my title of my product listing, and it was in my product description. It was not on my products specifically on my product packaging, but it was on my Amazon listing. It was the stupidest lawsuit I've ever been in. Well, this is the first time I've ever been sued, so it was the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. But another company filed a registration before we did, and we didn't think to file a registration for this, a trademark for this word. And I couldn't believe that the United States, Patent and Trademark Office approved something like this, but apparently they do. So you guys have to be careful. There's patent trolls out there. Whatever product that you're selling, they will file a silly like patent or trademark, and then they'll try to go after you and they try to scare you. And it's just some lawyer somewhere out of Middle East, Texas, or some random place going after people. And this whole thing about it. So if you are interested to know more about patent trolls, look it up. It's a real thing. But so they got approved for this name and a lot of other weird things. And so now I'm like, this is silly, but we have to defend ourselves. And what do you do next? So I decided the best course of action was to hire a big legal firm. So we went with Aaron Fox. I found them on Google. I did a bunch of research on different ones, and they specialize in intellectual property litigation. And so we hired them, and I didn't just hire one. I had to hire like 3 or 4 of them. One guy was the guy that oversees things, and then he has a bunch of other little associates to support him on the work. And I mean, they were expensive because the main, lead in this, he was getting paid like $600 an hour or something like that. Maybe $650 an hour, and then all his associates were like $300 to $400 an hour. I mean, it's expensive. When you get into legal, it gets kind of expensive. And so we hired this company to defend us in this stupid lawsuit. Once again, I repeat myself, it was the dumbest thing I've ever experienced ever in my life. I don't know if anyone here ever been through a lawsuit. Anyone ever? Raise your hand if you ever been through a lawsuit. You don't want to be in a lawsuit, so don't do that. Okay, yeah, listen, you've been at least one. Just make sure it's not a big one or just multiple ones. Just don't do things that get you sued. And next thing you know, I had to look back and reflect because when I hired them, I didn't think it was going to cost us this much, but several weeks in and then a few months in, the bill was going up to like $50,000 to $60,000 in legal fee. And they estimated that the costs, or I estimate that the costs go up to about $500,000 within the end of the year. And I don't see the lawsuit ending, and after a hard reflection, I made a decision. I came to the conclusion that it's not worth it. So I came to this decision, like, what would you do if you had the situation like this happen to you? Like, would you keep spending money? I was kind of angry. I was kind of worried. I was scared. I was fearful. I blamed God. Not really. No, I didn't blame God, but I cursed the world, right? I cursed the world on this. I was angry and I was frustrated with the whole thing. I knew that was the most ridiculous thing I ever dealt with, but we already lost so much money, like $1 million worth in potential revenue from one listing that was taken down. Meaning long term, I already lost a lot of money, a lot of potential revenue. So I reflected. I sat on my decision. I sat in this decision. I reflected real hard, and I realized that nobody's going to win if I keep fighting. Like sometimes you like, this is silly. Like I know I'm right. Why do I want to back down? I know my business is not going to win if I keep spending time thinking about this. I know my team is not going to win because I'm not spending time with them. And I know overall we're going to lose just in terms of revenue, not the legal case itself, but just financial loss in the future because we're not focused on growing and developing new ideas and developing new product, focusing on growing our marketing, expanding our market. So there was a lot of loss in the future, a lot of like downside just staying in this lawsuit. So I had to push down my ego a little bit. I had to suck up my pride and just be a little humble, and just like I decided that the best course was to settle it once and for all, actually. The entire times, lawyers were the one communicating back and forth. You know how lawyers are. They try to make as much money out of you as possible. So they're going to keep the conversation going. So they're sending emails like, man, did it really took you an hour to send out an email? Right? How long does it take to write an email? And so they were always talking back and forth. We're going through discovery. They're looking for documentation. Then somebody has to go look at documentation. They're like, we have to hire an expert to make sure that this word was not used too many times. And so, long story short, I had to make a decision. And the decision was to settle. I have to suck it up and let's just go towards settlement. And I know for sure if I kept because I had experience with somebody else. I had another friend that went through a lawsuit, and no, actually he was going after somebody, and he spent pretty much all of his money going after somebody because he was so pissed off of what they did. And I had to make that decision, right? I had to be humble. I had to learn from other people's lesson. And also I'm like, man, this doesn't look right. Doesn't look good for us long term if we continue to stay in this place. And so I made a decision that, we're going to go towards settling this case. So why am I sharing this? Just think about where you are right now. Things might not be going well. Things might be going right. Who knows? But you made a decision at the beginning. Instead of following what everybody else wanted you to do, you want to have some faith in yourself. So you decide to go after this online business journey. So if you're unsure of how things will work out, you're uncertain of the future, the decision that you made. And I just want to remind you guys how important it is that you know how to follow through to the end. That's what's important. No matter what decisions you ever make in your life, you have to know how to follow through. You have to know how to do this. Like, to be successful at anything, you have to be able to consistently follow through to the end. Now, so what does follow through means? It means seeing every action or task through to a successful completion. So pretty much seeing it all the way to the finish line. Just making sure that every task, every project, every plan that you have, every commitment that you have to reaching a certain goal, right? In business, sports, personal life, follow through is really important key to, reaching that dream that you have. It's like the determination to keep going, to fulfill the promise that you made, and to ensure that every step is taking towards success. Now, true success, you got to remember this, is your ability to see things through to the end. Like, you got to have that reliability and strength to stick to it. Now, embracing that follow through, and you put in the effort, and those effort will transform into incredible achievement. So how do you build this follow through muscle? I believe that everything is buildable, trainable. The only way for you to get good at it, you have to train at it. So it's very important. Stick to your decision and get to the finish line. That's what follow through is. So here's some tips to help you develop your follow through muscle. So the most important, we always talk about this, is be patient. And do you know what patience means? It means to endure long suffering. All right, patience is like suffering. That's the truth of it. It's long suffering, actually. But knowing how to endure that long suffering, right? Developing a skill is like, man, you're suffering. Like, I'm not great at this. This sucks. The analogy of riding a bicycle. Again, think about it. When you get onto a bicycle, the first time ever in your life, I'm pretty sure you must have fell at least once or twice. And falling down sucks. It hurts, especially if you're one of those people that likes to go really, really fast the first time. Like you're just pedaling aggressively and you're not stable. And next thing you know, you fall flat in your face. Hopefully you're wearing a helmet because you will bust your nose. I know I've seen people flipped over their bikes. I've seen a whole bunch of crazy stuff. I've done some stuff like that too. So it hurts. So patience is really knowing how to endure for a very long time. So just accept that today. Just accept that you got to be patient and you got to know how to endure for anything to grow. Okay, so stop asking when would it be over. Just tell yourself that you're gonna get it done, and when it's over, it's over. Just get it done. I met a couple of people in my past where it's like when we're working or doing something, it's like when we going home. I'm like, man, we're going home when the job is done, right? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean when we're going home? Like, we got a job, dude. We got to get this stuff done before we go home. But there's people out there like that. Don't be that person. Don't ask when it's going to be over, right? Focus on finishing. So number 2, you got to envision what victory looked like. You got to envision your victory. And for me, when I started doing marathon and challenges, when I'm starting my business, I always envision what success looked like for me. I always look back, I remember looking back and I always think like, what does that look like? Like, oh, I see my team growing. I see my business growing. I see certain revenue numbers hitting. And I always look back on that vision that I have. So what does victory look like for you? And it's the same thing for all of us here. You got to have a vision of what victory looked like. If you're doing all of this and you don't have a vision of what that looked like, what success looked like, you're not going to have the inspiration to keep going. It's gonna keep you from reaching that dream, that goal, whatever it is that you're set, because you don't have that vision of what it might look like. So for right now, what are you envisioning victory look like? So is it launching your first product? Like if you don't have a vision right now, just focus on that, because that's why we're here anyway, to start an online business. So focus on envisioning what it looks like to launch your first product. How that would feel, how all your efforts and everything paid off. So think about that. Dream about it, visualize it every day so that you can refocus, right? So that you have a path to follow. And number 3, of course, is always planning. So make sure you got a plan. If you don't have a plan, you don't have a path to follow. And if you need a plan, reach out to us. Reach out to your CSM, your head coaches, have them help you come up with a plan. If you don't have a plan, follow somebody else's plan, because there's always a plan out there. And if you're living your life without a plan, it's not going to work out very well. You need a plan. So I always remind from the previous conversation that we have many Mondays ago, what will you do if your account get deactivated completely? Are you planning to freak out and quit, or are you going to figure it out? So a lot of folks out there, they go into, so I'll talk about marriage and relationship, because this is close to me too. Because when you get into a relationship, the plan was that things will be happy ever after, right? All of us. Or the plan was we have this beautiful relationship. But it doesn't always go that way. The first 3 months might be great. The first 6 months might be great. The first year might be amazing. And next thing you know, what happened? Why are we fighting so much? I don't like the way you talk to me. I don't like your cooking. Things like that comes up. Next thing you know, you have kids and now you're fighting. But you don't have a plan going in. So everything is going to be unexpected. Like I know, like for me and my wife, our marriage is like, it's up and down. And I'm like, man, I accept that. I know that she's not perfect. I'm just going to accept that she's imperfect, and that's how it's going to be. And I'm not going to expect anything more than that. And the only thing I can expect that we're working towards being better. And so the plan is we're going to figure it out together. That's the plan. The plan is every time we have a problem, we're going to figure it out together. And so it works out for me. It works out for us in that sense. So for you, have this plan. Like things don't work out, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out how to solve this problem. That's the plan. I'm going to have these people I'm going to call. So I have a plan. So make sure you have a plan towards your goals. And planning means who you're going to talk to, who you're going to call, how are you going to react to it, how are you going to respond to a situation preemptively. Like if my account gets suspended or deactivated, I'm not going to freak out. I'm going to figure out how to solve it. So the last thing is to execute. The small action you take every day towards that decision is going to get you closer to your goal. So finishing all the way to the end, you got to start taking small action so that you can follow through. And I know you feel accomplished when you're able to take small action. For me, I was not a great writer. I'm still not a great writer. I'm getting better, but I write every day for 30 minutes. It was hard at first. The first few months was just terrible. I mean, I'm like, what do I write about? But writing helped me process the things that I think about today. And so I spend 30 minutes every day. And it's a reminder. The 30 minutes would then turn into hours. So, but you have to take action. That's how you follow through. You have to take some action. Where does the action come from? Is you envision your victory. So I remember when I was doing the 29, I don't know why I wore this hat today, but it's a good reference. When I was climbing, I was hiking up this mountain. I'll tell you a story. So I had a friend in Chicago, and I texted him. I was like, hey, man, you want to go grab dinner with me and your wife? You know? And he was like, sorry, man, I can't. I'm hiking 12 hours with my wife today. We're training. I'm like, training for what? So he has a business. He has a podcast interview business. That's what he does. And I asked him, what are you guys training for? So he says that he told me that he's training for him and his wife are training for this Camino de Santiago. And I'm like, what is that? And apparently it's a 30-day hike. I thought it was like a 1-day, 2-day hike, but it's a 550-mile hike. And I'm like, congrats. Good luck. That's all I can say. Congrats, good luck. And take some pictures. Send me some photos. But he's training every day with his wife. I mean, he's like, yeah, it's a bonding moment for us. We never ever done anything. Okay. And he's like 60 something, man. Okay. He's in his 60s. So there's no excuses here for anybody to not hike 500 miles. He can do it. You guys can too. He's not the fittest person I ever met, but he can do it. You guys can do it too. But he's taking action every day. 12 hours seems a lot, but he started with 1 hour hike. And so they're going to do this in September. They're going to hike 500 miles. And I'm like, that's crazy, but okay, that's awesome. Congrats, keep going. And it really let me, it just reminded me, like, when you take on a challenge, you got to follow through. So start teaching yourself on how to follow through. And how do you do that, man? Start small. Start this week. What is one thing you can follow through on? So that's you training that muscle of following through. So start with this week. What is it that you're going to follow through on, right? What is it you're going to execute on? What's one thing you're going to finish? You started, but you finish. And that's how you repeat that training muscle, that follow through muscle every single day. And it can be today too. You can start today. Like, what's one thing I need to follow through on? If I say I'm going to go to the gym, if I'm going to do product research for 30 minutes, if I'm going to read for 30 minutes, let's just pick one that you're going to follow through on. Repeat that consistently over time. You realize how further you've gotten, how much more you've grown, because you choose to follow through to the finish. What does finish look like? What does start look like? That's when you see that plan that you have, the in-between is the follow through. So let's get back to the phone call with Eli. So I decided to make a phone call. That's what happened. I committed to settling this thing. I made a phone call with Eli. So I finally got his number. I talked to my lawyer and they're like, hey, that's not a good idea. You shouldn't talk to him. And I'm like, why? You're like, he could be saying certain things. You might be divulging, some guiltiness. And I'm like, what am I guilty of, man? I didn't know. It was just, we made a mistake, right? We didn't know that he trademarked that word. So I was like, screw the lawyers. I don't want to keep paying them for their consultation. I'm going to talk to this guy, Eli, and we're going to resolve this today. And so after several days of contemplating what I'm going to talk to him about, I was like, screw this. I've been thinking about this for too long and it's not going anywhere. So I decided to call the guy. So what happened when I made the phone call to the CEO of the other company that sued me? And the guy was pretty savvy. He understood the dirty game of business. This is one of those dirty tactics that honestly you guys can use, but I don't do it, but you guys can if you want to. He was playing the long game. I knew he did this intentionally, but because in 2013, I found an email from his company reaching out to buy products from us. So he was our competitor. And now we're getting sued by him. And it's 2016, so it was 3 years ago. It takes at least 2 years to file a trademark. Some of you guys know this. If you guys go into the brand registry process and the trademark process, it takes at least 1.5 years. So he registered this mark right in the same time he reached out for us to buy products from us. So I'm thinking back, I'm like, okay, this guy, he probably did this intentionally, but you know what? It doesn't matter. So now you guys know that you can trademark another company's brand if they didn't trademark their brand. I mean, just trademark a word and you can probably hurt them. You can hurt your competitors this way. So because you file trademark infringement, listing get taken down, they have to pay royalties. So there was a lot of things that was happening where I was like, oh, you're supposed to pay me royalties for the last 3 years of making sales using this word. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be expensive too. So on this conversation, it was a long conversation. I explained to him the cost of fighting, where it didn't make sense, because I was willing to keep fighting if he wants to keep fighting. So I left it up to him to make the decision if he wants to keep wasting money to the lawyers. I explained that the lawyers were already making 50, 60 grand out of us in the first few, like 1 or 2 months. And it's just going to get more expensive. I told him that it's going to go up all the way up to $1 million. Are you willing to lose that much money just to fight over this? How much money are we going to lose from our future potential because we wasted a lot of time fighting over something like this? So a lot of convincing, a little bit of threatening, like, hey, I'm willing to fight you. I got funds. We got money. The reason why we could do this is because we saved money in our bank account, our business bank account. Which we did. We had a war chest. Everyone here needs to understand, you guys need to have a war chest when you're building your business and your personal life. It's an emergency fund. It's a saving. Don't just take all the money. Make sure you put a portion of it into a saving so that you can use it for situations like this, and especially in business. It's not the matter of like, am I going to get sued or not? It's when. When you're small, you're not going to get sued. But as you get bigger, your brand get more reputations, you are around more, eyes, more attention, you're going to get sued. That's just the nature of business. That's the part of business. Somebody's going to not like what you're selling. Somebody might not like what you said. I don't know. Maybe T said something online on social media people didn't like, right? Like, hey, I don't like that. I'm going to sue you. And so I'm telling you now, so you guys are prepared. When your business get bigger, there's a potential that you guys will get sued. And it's not from other people, it's really from a company. And yes, of course, there's a guy in the company, there's a person in the company that's filing this lawsuit, of course. So prepare yourself. Just remember, money can be used for many different areas. It's marketing, research, product development, but it also used for defense and for battling as an offense. So make sure you're saving some money to prepare for those kind of battles that comes. So after my discussion with Eli, we came to a settlement. We came up with a number, got the lawyer drafted up. It was like around $300,000 plus. We negotiated. I did not want to pay that. It was a terrible feeling, but at the end of the day, you know what? I had to follow through with it. Signed the documents. The lawyers even told me, like, he was like, man, how did you get him to settle? And I was surprised myself. I guess, speaking to him directly helped out a lot because I was really firm about I'm willing to keep fighting. And we're not going down under. We're not going down if you keep wanting to fight. But it doesn't make sense. So maybe my convincing was good. I was good at convincing him. So we finally both signed, after several months of like stress, sleepless nights, not sure what the uncertainty of the future is. It ended, and I was able to refocus on growing the business again, refocus on expansion, and just kind of recover. It took us like a whole year to kind of recover. And it's a risk that we all face. And, in any business that I do today, I'm still worrying about those risks. But I gotten better. I've learned that, it's not over when you get sued. It's just, you got to know how to prepare yourself for it. You got to know how to fight it. You got to plan. You got to do the right thing. Like, hey, make sure you trademark. That's a $300,000 lesson there. Right? Make sure you trademark your brand. I didn't know I had to do that. At the time, we had one word, like one brand, but then there was other little brands that we were selling that I didn't know that we had to trademark for that. And so after that, I trademark everything. Everything that we use, we trademark. Didn't matter. And I just want to share that with you guys today. Hopefully to remind you guys that you got to follow through to the end. I said I was going to call him, I was going to settle this case, and I showed up, I did. I don't know if the decision was right or the decision was wrong. Maybe fighting it would have been a better decision and making him pay for the legal fees and, pay for, disrupting our business. I can countersuit and sue him for like over $1 million. But who knows? I don't know what the right decision is, but you know what? At the end of the day, we follow through on the decision we make, and we just kept moving forward. And I just want to share that and remind you guys to follow through, because that's what's important. Any decision that you make, you got to follow through. Don't just make a decision and not follow through it. Don't just take action, make a decision today and not take action on it.